And Rosa, can you unmute?
Yes. I don't know. I've asked a few questions, I guess. Hold on. Oh, okay. Well, let's see. Well, this isn't often talked about in terms of police violence, but the massive number of guns on the streets have resulted in the militarization of the police and the war we see on our streets. Should gun control be part of this discussion?
Rosa, can you repeat that last part? You cut out a little bit on mine.
Should gun control be part of this discussion?
Look, Rosa, I grew up in a generation that was marked by gun violence. One of my earliest memories as a child was hearing the news and sitting down with my parents as they explained to me what happened at Columbine. I am probably the only candidate in this race that grew up going to school and participating in active shooter drills. I very vividly, and it gives me chills to think about where I was driving back from the Capitol when I heard the news of the shooting at the Walmart in El Paso. And I thought about the family and friends that I have in that community, and I was worried sick. I pulled over to the side of the road, and I called every single person that I could think of. And every single time that they didn't answer the phone, my heart sank. I was worried. I didn't know if they were okay, if they were just happened to have been gone to shop for groceries in that moment. You know, I hear the very real signs of gun violence in our community every single day. And gun violence reform, addressing the gun violence epidemic, needs to be at the forefront. No child should grow up in a community, in a society in which gun violence is something that is desensitized, that does not impact, that when they hear a gunshot, that doesn't faze them. Or when they hear of another tragedy, another mass tragedy, that doesn't faze them. In Congress, I'm going to make sure that we are pushing to bring the policy proposals that we need to address this growing epidemic. At the state level, I am proud of the work that I did to help pass the Extreme Risk Protective Order, to make sure that if there is the presence of a firearm in a situation where an individual could cause harm to themselves or others, that there is a vehicle by which to remove that firearm. I'm proud of the work that I did to help make sure that we passed universal background check legislation here at the state. And in Congress, I want to make sure that we close every single loophole that exists that would lead to an individual who should not have one, having access to a firearm, including the Charleston loophole that gave the ability for an individual to access a weapon and then commit horrendous killings at a Black church in Charleston. We need to make sure that we are prohibiting the manufacturing of 3D printed weapons, the weapons that don't have serial numbers that we can't track. We need to make sure that we are banning semi-automatic assault rifles from our communities. The weapons of war have no place on our streets. And we need to make sure that we are pushing federal investments into the programs that we know work. Programs like the one that we have right here in Albuquerque called the Violence Intervention Program that utilizes a public health approach to addressing gun violence by identifying those who are most likely to be the victims or the perpetrators of gun violence and helping support the changes and the community wraparound services that can help stop gun violence in its tracks. That includes making sure that housing insecurity is met, food insecurity is met, that any behavioral health resources that are necessary are provided. We need to support these programs, expand them into more communities across the state, and make sure that the federal investments are at the levels that we really need to see the lasting change. So gun violence prevention absolutely needs to be at the forefront of this conversation. It's another issue that we cannot afford to wait on. Thank you for that question, Rosa.